Respected colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on the bill which seeks to amend the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN Act to increase the total CBN advances to the federal government from 5% to maximum of 15%. The bill was read the first time in this chamber on Saturday, that's today, 27th May 2023. The very essence of this bill, my respected colleagues, is to enable the federal government meet its immediate and future obligations in the approval of the Ways and Means by the National Assembly and advances to the federal government by the Central Bank of Nigeria. This amendment is very consequential and it needs the support of all of us. This is to enable the federal government to embark on very important projects that will inflate and rejig the economy. I therefore urge you all to support the passage of this very important bill. I so move.
Any comments?
It's just maybe a question, and I don't know whether you can provide the answer, because this amendment, if we read the second 1, 2, 3, the third passage of the lead debate, it says that the very essence of this bill, my respected colleagues, is to enable the federal government meet its immediate and future obligation in the approval of the Ways and Means by the National Assembly and advances to the federal government by the DCN. This looks to me like a one-off. Now, are you amending the CBN Act to reflect a one-off? Or is it going to be something that will be happening all the time? Because this is an unusual happening. So it is just for us to enable the CBN advance monies to the federal government that we are doing this. I don't think the incoming government will spend this amount of money without approval. I expect that this will happen. So how do you amend an act for a one-off? That is the question, Mr. President.
But let me also say that it's not a one-off thing. We are not doing an amendment just for a particular action now. This is for the entire period that government would need this. If at any point government doesn't think it needs it, then it can be amended. But at the moment, it's not an attempt to just give a CBN a leverage for a one-off thing. Senator Betty Apiafi.
Ms. Betty Apiafi, I represent Rivers West Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to agree with what Senator Suswan has said. 15% for Ways and Means is quite high. Again, is it for this government or for the incoming? And then, of course, the issue of securitization still comes in. Because if 15% is taken, I don't see how it can be paid off within the stipulated time of 1 year that is in the CBN Act. So are we keeping silence on the issue of securitization, or we are just hoping that the governments that will come in, or the further borrowing or further utilization of Ways and Means will be extinguished within 1 year? That's just my question.
Mr. President, I don't think looking at the amendment, the intention is for it to be a one-off. More or less, it's, I think, an attempt to give the government more leverage when it comes to this temporary financing that Ways and Means provides. If we look at the last dispensation, I think between 2015 and 2022, Ways and Means spending grew up by 7,000%. So given that this is how the government has been run, it's obvious that leaving it at that 5% will only create fiscal problems. So I think it's just to create some more leverage for the government. In the first place, the issue of the repayment period has not been changed. So whether you increase it to 5% or 15%, the Act still specifies that that amount has to be paid within that financial year. My only concern, Mr. President, is the fact that I thought we'll also be looking at amending Section 38, subsection 3, subsection B, that talked about securitization Ways and Means, because essentially we gave an approval some time ago for the 22 trillion Ways and Means to be securitized. But I think the CBN Act expressly prohibits securitization of Ways and Means. So if we don't also look at that act with that section with the with view to amending it, we may have embarked on an exercise in futility. It's very, very strict because Ways and Means, Mr. President, is not a financing vehicle. It's just meant to act as a temporary stopgap for revenues. Most of the tax receipts come in December. So if you are getting 2-3 trillion in December from companies, then you can raise Ways and Means in June, July, knowing fully well that it will be cleared by December. So we have to be careful not to create an impression that this is another window for government to finance itself or finance long-term projects, because that was what happened in the other time. We found out that almost everything was going under Ways and Means, from salary bailouts to all sorts of things. So, but I think the issue of the 15% is quite clear. It is not a stopgap. It's not a one-off thing. It's meant to just create some more leverage. Looking at the fact that for the last 7 years, this Ways and Means has been the ceiling has been exceeded by multiple folds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Betty. You raised a vital question, and of course, the points raised by Senator Ibrahim Hadeja responded adequately to that. But let me say that what is crucial again is oversight, because you are giving government more space, and what that means is government can utilize the opportunity there. But I don't think we should allow the kind of thing that happened from 2016 to 2023, accumulating this kind of Ways and Means without the checks that are necessary. So I think it's just giving government more space, but that also tasks the legislature to work hard to ensure that there is no repeat of what has happened. Senator Oba.
My distinguished colleague, Senator Albert Bassi Akwabono, is, Mr. President, what you have said is totally correct. But let me equally add that even the next National Assembly, in the cost of processing the annual budgets, and we are increasing benchmarks, such increase should also take cognizance of the need to provide for the funding gap for even Ways and Means within the fiscal year. We don't just come increase benchmark and it's about projects. We should always be looking at Ways and Means, because every businessman requires an overdraft. It's a stopgap measure, and like you rightly pointed out, the 15% is maximum. It could be 5%, it could be 6%, it could be 7%. But let it not be in the course of all this we have to come and start approving again. But when the next National Assembly is looking into the annual budget, and at the point of increase of benchmark to accrue revenue, provisions must equally be made to accommodate the expected expenditure of government fallback on Ways and Means.
Very much.